The 7th People and Parks Conference ends today. The conference under the theme Unlocking Protected Areas' Economic Potential. The conference brought together 500 role players from different spheres of government, representatives of communities living adjacent to protected areas, conservation authorities, non-governmental organizations, civic organizations, academic institutions, traditional leaders and landowners, among many others. Minister Molewa joins us in studio to talk more about this conference and the upcoming conference of the parties to CITES COP17 conference coming very soon. A very good morning to you, Minister Edna Molewa. Welcome to Morning Prime. We really do appreciate your time.
And thanks to ANN7 for having me. Good morning to our viewers as well.
So give us a brief history. What initiated the creation of the People and Parks Conference?
You know, coming from the dark past, as we do as South Africans, when during those olden days, the people who lived in and around the parks were actually, not all of them, obviously some of them were forcefully removed to make way for the creation of our protected areas, which was not a bad thing to create the protected areas, but was a bad thing to remove communities in the manner in which we did. And therefore, we are now working on a redress program, redressing the imbalances of the past and that which happened in the past, obviously within this new democratic dispensation. And this is what this People and Parks is all about. So we are then saying all those people who have been restituted back to their own land, who may not actually be occupying that, let's say in the Kruger National Park, for instance, all the communities that have benefited back from to get their recognition and even some funding that has been given to them. Last year we're distributing, the President handed over checks to the tune of 84 million rand to about 4 communities that were dispossessed their land in the Kruger National Park. So they are now co-owners. They're recognized as co-owners in the park. Some are in Eastern Cape, some are in the Northwest. This past 2 days, we had handed 4 title deeds in the Northwest Parks for those who were dispossessed in Pilanesberg. So there have been those who are actually now not in the bigger parks, but being given their land. They are being helped to fence off. We have a budget for that, fence off that land, and some have actually got donation of a rhino already and some of the species of animals. So they are becoming operators in the commercial sense in this particular space as part of our greater program of redress. So this is our 7th conference where we are doing that recognition and continuing to dialogue about the agenda going forward as to how we can actually continue to empower them.
Now let's talk about the theme chosen for this year, Unlocking Protected Areas' Economic Potential. Talk to us more about that.
Yes, indeed. We have also developed a new strategy over and above the program that we've been using for the People and Parks. We now have a new program called the National Biodiversity Economy Strategy that will apply countrywide because it has got 4 pillars. Part of it is in the marine space, and another area is in ensuring that we really develop our wildlife management up to the commercial sector levels, particularly for those communities as the ones that we're talking about. So we're unlocking the wildlife management for them. We're also looking at what we call bioprospecting, because some of the plants that are found in various other communities are medicinal plants, if you like. It's not only plants, by the way, animals as well, like a crocodile and so forth. They have medicinal value. And you will find that those communities have actually had knowledge, indigenous knowledge, always in the past. They've somehow used those as medicinal. So as these medicinal plants are now commercialized, the law in South Africa does, which we call bioprospecting law, does now allow that we should actually enable that these communities must benefit in one way or another. Either they become shareholders or they get once off when they get commercialized and get onto the shelves of the pharmacies. So this is the work that we do with science and technology. That's the 3rd pillar. Of course, the 4th pillar is ensuring that in the commercialization, there's meat industry, venison. We don't eat venison in the country, in South Africa. So we want to grow that aspect in a big way. So those 4 pillars of growing biodiversity, National Biodiversity Economy Strategy, will focus mainly on this green field, in particular in areas where people have never actually benefited and have been disadvantaged in the past. So it's about the biodiversity and rural economies in particular.
Now, who can participate in this conference?
We have a leadership, by the way, a structure, a formal way. We have now reviewed that and now made it a bit stronger. This is what they were going to be adopting or re-looking differently at this conference, because it was a proposal that was put for them. But the previous existence of the structure that was there is that the people and parks themselves in that structure, in that program, had a structure that has got a chairperson, and they're working with traditional authorities. They have membership of those who are dispossessed, who got their land back, those who are still claimed, who still may not still have been given their land back, but any other member who have a farm or any other structure like that who wants to become part of that. We work very closely, by the way, we are like twins with the Department of Rural Development. So hand in hand and hand in glove, what they have as funding, we also have as funding, we combine and then work on them together. So this structure has a chairpersonship, Mdade Mohokane, who's very able. He's been really leading the structure and putting the teams together throughout the country. We're now getting the structure to be replicated and have their provincial chapters, but also be based at the national office level, so that there's coordination, there's monitoring of projects. Right now, the assessment that was done at this conference told us that actually of the 34 projects that we have had, 12 have been handed over, 12 are up in development stage, and 10 are still at planning stages. So we want better output, not 52% of the output as we have. You don't want to be operated by a doctor who've passed 52% of an exam.
Nobody
so we want
wants
100%
yes.
of performance. Yeah.
Now, what feedback can you give us regarding the progress made in addressing specifically land claims issues affecting these protected areas and measures put in place in order to enhance the rural livelihoods of these people?
As I say, we have the Department of Rural Development being part of us, and therefore the Department of Rural Development's role, which is actually their key mandate with the Land Claims Commission, by the way, they process the claims, and they also, by the way, have grant that post the claims that have been processed. They then hand over those, the 84 million rand, by the way, that I spoke about earlier on, comes from the dispossessed people as a grant from the Department of Land Affairs and Land Claims. So they then give those. We have another grant that helps them to put up lodges, to put up infrastructure in all these kinds of facilities. We've opened a lodge last year at the last People and Parks, which has got restaurant, it's got gates, it's got very good facilities that are in the rural area and in a park that was never thought to be a park that can be owned by community like that one. So the 12 that I'm talking about is where we've also built other facilities over and above what Land Affairs is doing for these communities. So yes, Land Affairs works with in that manner. We also come in with this fund to put up the facilities, restaurant, lodges, you name it, park, roads that are necessary in the park. We also enable where there's need for education, that kind of education should take place. But we also help them with skills capacity, because these lodges have got to run to be profitable. Some of them are maybe quite smaller, but they can then use it for local tourism and link with municipalities for in case they have programs like when they have workshops and things like that, to use those smaller ones in and around the area where they live. So it's quite an exciting program. We are very, very happy about it. And I think that this is has got a potential of ensuring that it helps us that as the economy here in Johannesburg, you see Johannesburg and Pretoria is no longer like the past. We don't know where Johannesburg ends, where Pretoria ends. As these areas are growing, you also have the rural communities growing, because that's our major focus now as this country, to look at development of our people in those areas and deep rural areas. I think if we really succeed with all these programs and projects, we'll have massive growth and inclusivity of our people in the programs.
And then lastly, before we let you go, tell us more about the Conference of the Parties to the Convention on the International Trade in Endangered Species of Wild Fauna and Flora. What can we expect to take place at that conference?
It's an exciting conference. The Secretary General of CITES himself has this to say, that this is actually one of the biggest conferences with the biggest agenda. With many delegates, we have 183 parties that have signed and almost all of them, this registration is still going on, almost all of them will be here on the shores of South Africa, exactly because South Africa is a country that's actually proved it, as we have already proven that we are able to host such events. You know, we name it from football to everything. COP17 was here as well, so that's why they are here. But the agenda is very exciting. Over and above the facilities that we are creating and the ambient that we are creating for them to actually have negotiations and dialogue, because that's where parties need to engage. There will be the real substance that we have to look at. There are agenda items ranging from lion. Remember, this species, the CITES is actually a body about ensuring that from a fauna and flora point of view, we do not deplete these natural resources and leave them for our generations and generations to come. Let's say, for instance, if there was to be, and I'm taking one of the examples of South Africa, we do uplisting. Listing in Appendix 1, there are 2 appendices. Appendix 1 is a listing where you can't trade, not allowed to trade with it. It's international trade. And then Appendix 2 is where you allow to trade, but with regulated permitting system in place. So yes, table zebra of South Africa, the mountain zebra. And yes, mountain zebra was put on uplisted. When we saw it in South Africa that the numbers were actually gradually going down and down, it was almost getting to extinction. We do that through our scientific reports, by the way, you don't look with the eyes. And then we say, through the scientific reports, the multiplication or the increasing of the numbers is not as per the way we want it to be. So we uplisted it. And having uplisted it, we then say, now we are going back to CITES and say, move it from Appendix 1 to Appendix 2, because now we have the right numbers. So it's those kinds of examples, lions, elephants, rhino proposals, you know, we have shark listings and so forth proposed, and even management of other species. So the agenda has got 65 items.
Oh my goodness, a long conference,
yeah.
but a good conference. Miss Edna Molewa, thank you so much for joining us here on Morning Prime. We really do appreciate your time here. That is the Minister of Environmental Affairs, live in studio, talking to us a little bit more about the 7th People and Parks Conference that ends today, rather. Time now for a